Within 1 hour of the fight, emergency meetings were being held across the galaxy in the Kithra High Command. War room generals who had never shown fear were pacing nervously as they reviewed every recorded interaction with human forces in the Gornathi Council chambers. Elders who had lived for thousands of years were questioning everything they thought they knew about the small bipedal creatures from the third planet of an unremarkable star system, the floating cities of the Zefki Collective. Mind pulsed with colors of confusion and re-evaluation as billions of individual consciousnesses tried to process the implications of what had happened at the Void's Edge. Bar Station Administrator Quellen had been managing interspecies relations. For over 3 centuries he thought he had seen everything, but when he arrived at the bar and saw the aftermath of the fight, he realized he understood nothing about the species under his protection. The 3 humans sat quietly at a table in the corner waiting to give their statements. They had been offered medical attention but declined. They had been offered legal representation but said it was not necessary. They had been offered protection from retaliation but just looked at the administrator with expressions that suggested such protection would not be needed. Kellen approached their table carefully. He was an ancient being with experience dealing with every known species, but something about these 3 humans made him feel like a child meeting adults for the first time. "I need to understand what happened here," he said in his whisper-soft voice. "My security teams tell me that you 3 defeated over 30 of the most dangerous warriors in this sector of space." Dia looked up at him with tired eyes. "We defended ourselves," he said simply. "But how?" Quellen asked. "You are human. You are not supposed to be capable of such." Vilensa Jinwu leaned back in his chair. "Who told you that?" he asked. "Everyone," Quellen replied. "The entire galactic community knows that humans are peaceful, non-aggressive beings. You avoid conflict, you negotiate instead of fighting. You are the soft special." Soying made a small sound that could have been laughter. "Soft," she repeated. "Do you know what it takes to be peaceful in a universe full of predators?" The administrator waited for her to continue. "It takes strength," she said. "It takes the ability to destroy your enemies combined with the wisdom to choose not to do so. True peace is not weakness disguised as a virtue. True peace is strength under control." Around the bar, medical teams were working on the injured aliens. Many of them would recover completely, but all of them would carry the memory of this night for the rest of their lives. They had learned something about humans that would change how they saw the galaxy. One of the Kithra warriors who had regained consciousness called out to Quellen. "Administrator, you must warn everyone. Humans are not what we thought. Contact all the colonies, all the trade partners, all the military commands. They need to know." "What do they need to know?" Quellen asked. "That we have been living next to sleeping giants," the warrior said. "They let us believe they were weak, but they are more dangerous than anything else in space. They just choose not to show it." Across the station, emergency communications were being sent to every major civilization. The content was similar in all languages and formats. "Urgent re-evaluation of human threat assessment required. Previous intelligence completely inaccurate. Recommend immediate diplomatic review." But the most important message was being broadcast on all frequencies from the Nexus station itself. It was simple and direct. "Attention all ships and stations. Human vessels are to be treated with maximum respect and caution. Previous assessments of human military capability have been determined to be dangerously inaccurate, and distant worlds' military commanders were pulling up files on human colonies that they had marked for easy conquest. Mining companies were canceling plans to forcibly relocate human settlements. Pirate crews were deciding that human cargo ships might not be such easy targets." After Alblack and the bar, Quellen was trying to understand the implications of what he had witnessed. "You have been hiding your true nature," he said to the 3 humans. "Why? We have not been hiding anything," Deho replied. "We have been exactly what we always are, peaceful people who want to live our lives and take care of our families." "Then why did this happen?" Tonachin Wu answered. "Because someone threatened our family, because someone hurt people we cared about, because someone thought that human restraint meant human weakness, and you wanted to correct that misunderstanding." And shook her head. "We did not want to correct anything," she said. "We wanted justice for the people who died at Harmony Colony. We got it." The administrator realized that the 3 humans had not been trying to send a message to the galaxy. They had simply been doing what humans do when their families are threatened. The fact that it revealed the truth about human nature was just a side effect. Quellen activated his personal communicator and sent a priority message to the Galactic Council. Emergency session required. Subject: human species reclassification from non-aggressive to potentially extremely dangerous. Recommend immediate review of all existing treaties and agreements. As he sent the message, he looked back at the 3 humans who were now preparing to leave. They had paid their bar tab. They had given their statements to security. They had answered all questions honestly and completely. Now they just wanted to go back to their ship and continue their lives. "Wait," Quellen called out. "Where are you going?" "Home," Deho replied. "We have cargo to deliver." The administrator could not believe it. "You just changed the balance of power in the galaxy and you are going back to work?" Jinwu looked confused. "We have contracts to fulfill," he said. "People are depending on us to deliver their supplies. But do you not understand what you have done? Every species will now see humans differently. Your people will be feared and respected in ways they never were before." Picked up her small bag and slung it over her shoulder. "Good," she said. "Maybe now people will think twice before hurting human families." There 3 humans walked toward the door, but Quellen called out one more time. "How many of you are there? How many humans have this kind of ability?" The three friends stopped and looked back at him. All of us, Deho said quietly. Every single human you have ever met could have done what we did tonight if they had sufficient reason. Every human, Quellen whispered. Nodded. We are all the same species, she said. We all love our families the same way. We all remember those who hurt us. We all choose to be peaceful until we cannot afford to be peaceful anymore. The three humans left the bar and walked through the station toward their ship behind them. They left a galaxy that would never see them the same way again. In the days that followed, the story spread to every inhabited world. Humans were not the soft species. Humans were not weak. Humans were patient and kind and gentle by choice, not by nature. And when that choice was taken away from them, they became something that even the most dangerous predators in the galaxy had learned to fear. The bar fight at the Void's Edge became known as the night. The galaxy woke up to reality. The night everyone learned that the most dangerous beings in space were the ones who appeared harmless because they chose to be. And in the cargo hold of a simple transport ship, three humans named Deho and Jinwoo and Soyang continued their journey through space, carrying supplies to colonies that needed them. They were still peaceful, they were still kind, they were still the same people they had always been. The only difference was that now everyone else knew what that really meant. The security forces that burst through the bar entrance were not ordinary guards. These were elite warriors from the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The team leader was a massive Vorthok with armor that could stop plasma cannons. Behind him came Scalari assassins whose reflexes were faster than most creatures could think, and bringing up the rear were two Rothgar berserkers who were famous for never losing a fight. They expected to find chaos. They expected to find multiple casualties. They expected to find a situation that would require all their training and firepower to control. What they found instead made them stop in the doorway and stare. The three humans sat calmly at the bar, sharing a bottle of something that looked like golden water. Around them lay the unconscious or groaning forms of some of the galaxy's most feared warriors. Kithra soldiers who had conquered entire star systems were curled up on the floor, holding broken limbs. Gornouthi, who could crush metal with their bare hands, were sitting quietly against the walls, looking stunned and defeated. But what shocked the security team most was how normal the humans looked. They were not breathing hard. They were not covered in blood. They were not showing any signs of the battle fury that usually followed such violence. They looked like three friends having a quiet drink after a long day at work. The Vorthok team leader had been a soldier for over 200 years. He had seen every kind of combat, the situation imaginable, but he had never seen anything like this. What happened here? He demanded in his deep, gravelly voice. Steho looked up from his drink with tired eyes. There was a disagreement, he said simply. It has been resolved. The Vorthok looked around the destroyed bar at the dozens of injured aliens who resolved it. We did, Ginwoo said, taking a sip from his glass. The security team exchanged glances. This was not possible. Three humans could not defeat this many professional warriors. It went against everything they knew about biology and physics and common sense. The team leader activated his communicator and spoke into it. Command, we have a situation here. I need medical teams and interrogation specialists. The humans did something, but I do not understand what. While they waited for backup, the security team tried to piece together what had happened. They interviewed the conscious aliens who had witnessed the fight, but every story sounded more impossible than the last. A Cathera warrior with a broken arm insisted that the small human female had moved faster than his eyes could follow. She threw objects with perfect accuracy and seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. It was like fighting a machine designed for war. He said. A Gornathi with cracked ribs claimed that the medium-sized human had lifted and thrown a metal table that weighed more than most vehicles. He moved our heaviest warriors like they were made of paper. The rock creature rumbled in amazement, but the most disturbing testimony came from the Zefki who had floated near the ceiling during the fight. Their advanced minds had recorded every detail, and when they shared their memories through light patterns, the security team saw something that changed their understanding of reality. The humans had not been fighting with desperation or rage or even adrenaline. They had been fighting with cold, calculated precision. Every move had been planned, every strike had been measured. They had known exactly how much force to use on each opponent and exactly where to hit them for maximum effect. This was not the random flailing of weak creatures pushed too far. This was warfare at a level that most species could not even comprehend. The Vorthok team leader approached the three humans cautiously. You need to explain what happened here, he said. His hand rested on his weapon, but he did not draw it. Something told him that would be a very bad idea. Soyoung looked up at him with eyes that seemed much older than her face. The Cathera captain told us about destroying a human colony, he said quietly. He described killing families and children. He seemed to think it was amusing. The team leader felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard of Harmony Colony. Every species in this sector knew about the massacre that had happened there. It had been used as an example of what happened to worlds that resisted Kithra expansion. You were from Harmony Colony, he asked. Zoyum nodded. I was visiting friends on another planet when it happened. When I came home, there was nothing left but burned buildings and empty graves. The security team stood in uncomfortable silence. They were beginning to understand that this had not been a random bar fight. This had been something much more serious. Dea stood up slowly from his bar stool. We came here to find the beings responsible for what happened to our friends. Families, he said. We found them. Jinwoo finished his drink and set the glass down carefully. We did not come here to start a war, he added. We came here for justice. The team leader looked around the bar again at all the defeated aliens. Justice, he repeated. The humans nodded. But you are supposed to be the peaceful species. The Vorthok said, confusion clear in his voice. You do not fight wars. You run from conflict. You are weak. Daeho smiled, but it was not a happy expression. We are peaceful, he said. That does not mean we are weak. It means we choose not to use our strength. Unless we have no other choice. Jinwoo stood up as well. Tonight we had no other choice, he said. So Young joined her friends. They hurt our family, she said simply. In human culture, family is sacred. When you attack our family, we stop being peaceful. What security team was starting to understand something terrible and wonderful and completely terrifying. Every peaceful interaction they had ever had with humans, every diplomatic solution, every time humans had chosen retreat over conflict had been a choice made by beings who were capable of extraordinary violence. Humans were not weak, they were restrained. And there was a very big difference between those two things. The team leader activated his communicator again. Command, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I need you to send a message to every allied species in the sector. We need to completely reevaluate our understanding of human capabilities. What do you mean? Came the reply. Mean we have been wrong about humans, he said. Very, very wrong. Around the bar, the injured aliens were starting to understand the same thing. The beings they had dismissed as soft and weak and cowardly were actually apex predators, who had been choosing to appear harmless. The Cathora Captain Velta, who was barely conscious, looked up at Soy Yang with new understanding in his black eyes. Your people, he whispered, they are not what we thought they were. Soy Yang knelt down next to him again. No, she said softly. We are exactly what we have always been. We are human, we love our families, we protect our children, and we never forget when someone hurts the people we care about. She stood up and walked back to her friends. The security team leader realized that everything was about to change, not just in this bar or this station, but across the entire galaxy. Every species would need to reconsider their relationship with humanity. Every alliance, every trade agreement, every military assessment would need to be reviewed, because the humans were not the soft species they never had been, and now everyone was going to find out what that really meant. What happened next changed everything the aliens thought they knew about humans. Daeho moved so fast that most of the watching creatures did not even see it happen. One moment he was standing quietly next to his bar stool, and the next moment his fist was buried deep in Velta's chest. The sound that came from the impact was like breaking stone mixed with cracking metal. Velta's eyes went wide with shock and pain. He looked down at the small human fist that had somehow punched completely through his supposedly unbreakable chest armor. The black shiny carapace that had protected him in hundreds of battles was now cracked and broken, like an eggshell. But that was just the beginning. Jinwoo moved at the same time as his friend, but in a different direction. He grabbed a heavy metal chair and swung it at the two Kithra warriors who were still sitting at their table. The chair hit the first warrior so hard that it sent him flying across the room to crash into the wall. The second warrior tried to stand up, but Jinwoo was already there, driving his knee into the alien's thorax with enough force to crack Chitin's spine. Moved like flowing water around the bar, picking up a broken bottle from the floor. Her movements were smooth and precise. As she approached a Gornathi who had stood up to watch the fight, the rock creature was 3 times her size, and probably weighed as much as a small vehicle. But when she struck him with the bottle, he went down like a falling tree. The entire bar erupted into chaos in less than 10 seconds. The other aliens could not believe what they were seeing. These were supposed to be the weak, soft creatures that ran away from every fight. These were supposed to be the pathetic beings who cried and begged when threatened, but the 3 humans fighting in front of them moved like nothing they had ever encountered before. Velta tried to swing one of his clawed arms at Daeho, but the human caught his wrist and twisted it in a direction that arms were not supposed to bend. The sound of breaking bone filled the air, and Velta screamed in pain and confusion. How is this possible? He gasped. How can soft creatures be so strong? Daeho looked into the alien's black eyes with an expression that was calm and controlled and absolutely terrifying. Because we are not soft, he said quietly. We just choose to be gentle. Then he hit Velta again, and the Kithara captain collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Across the room, Jinwoo was facing 3 Gornathi at once. The rock creatures were swinging their massive fists at him, but he moved between their attacks like he could predict exactly where each blow would land. He grabbed a heavy metal table and used it as a shield, then as a weapon, smashing it into the first Gornathi with enough force to send cracks running through the creature's stone skin. The second Gornathi tried to grab Jinwoo with both hands, but the human slipped out of his grip and climbed up onto the alien's back. He found a weak spot where the creature's neck met his shoulders and pressed hard. The Gornathi made a choking sound and fell forward, like a mountain collapsing. The third rock creature backed away with his hands raised. I surrender, he rumbled in his deep voice. Please, do not hurt. Jinwoo looked at him with steady eyes. Then you will sit down and stay quiet, he said. The Gornathi sat down immediately. Meanwhile, Soyoung was dealing with the floating Zefki who had been watching the fight with pulsing colors of panic and confusion. They tried to float higher toward the ceiling to get away from the violence, but Soyoung picked up a metal tray and threw it with perfect accuracy. The tray spun through the air and hit the nearest Zefki right in its glowing center. The creature flickered and fell to the ground, where it lay twitching and changing colors rapidly. The other HFY immediately floated as far away as they could get, but what terrified the watching aliens most was not the human's strength or speed or fighting skill. It was how calm and controlled they remained throughout the entire battle. Deho breathed normally, like he was taking a peaceful walk. His movements were economical and precise, never wasting energy on unnecessary actions. When he struck an opponent, it was always in exactly the right place to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. Jinwoo fought like he was solving a puzzle, figuring out each opponent's weaknesses and exploiting them systematically. He never seemed angry or excited, just focused on the task at hand like he was doing routine work. So-young moved through the chaos like she was dancing. Her strikes flowed from one to the next in smooth combinations, and she never seemed to be where the aliens expected her to be. She was small and looked fragile, but she fought with the precision of someone who had been trained for warfare. Bartender had pressed an emergency button, and now alarms were ringing throughout the station. Security forces would arrive soon, but the aliens in the bar were not sure if that would help or make things worse. A Kithra warrior, who had been trying to crawl away from the fight, called out to his fallen captain. "Captain, what do we do? How do we fight them?" Velta, who was barely conscious, looked up at the three humans who were now standing calmly in the middle of the destroyed bar. "You cannot fight them," he whispered. "We were wrong about everything." The remaining aliens pressed themselves against the walls, trying to stay as far away from the humans as possible. They had seen the most feared warriors in the galaxy defeated in minutes by three creatures they had thought were harmless. Zelda Thoxrin, the Gornathi leader, spoke in a voice that shook like an earthquake. "What are you?" he asked the humans. "What are you?" Realidea looked around the bar at all the terrified aliens. "We are exactly what we have always been," he said. "We are human. The only difference is that tonight you made us stop being patient." And picked up his drink from the bar where it had somehow survived the fight. He took a sip and set it back down. "We do not like violence," he said to the watching aliens. "That is why we avoid it. But when you threaten our families, when you hurt our children, we become something else." Intira Soyan walked over to where Velta lay on the floor. She knelt down next to him and spoke very quietly. "The little girl you described, the one with long black hair, her name was Minji. She was my sister." Velta's eyes went wide with understanding and terror. "She was 7 years old," Soyan continued. "She liked to draw pictures of flowers, and she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. You killed her because you thought it would be fun." The alien tried to speak, but no words came out. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. Outside the bar, station security was coming, but everyone in the room knew that the real fight was already over. The three humans had not just won a battle, they had shattered every assumption, every belief, every comfortable lie that the galaxy had built around the idea of human weaknesses. The security forces prepared to enter the bar. The aliens inside realized that everything was about to change. The humans were not the soft species they never had been, and now everyone would know it. Velta stood behind the three humans, feeling very pleased with himself. He was much taller than them, and his black shiny body reflected the bar lights. His 6 arms moved slowly, showing off his sharp claws to anyone watching. He wanted everyone to see how small and weak the humans looked next to a real warrior like him. The other Kithera at his table were clicking their mouths and watching with interest. They had seen their captain intimidate many different species before, but humans were always the most fun to scare because they never fought back. "Tell me, little humans," Velta said in his clicking voice, "what brings you to our bar? Are you lost? Did you take a wrong turn somewhere?" Deho took another sip of his drink and still did not look up. His shoulders were slumped like he was very tired from working too hard. Jinwoo continued, staring at the bottles behind the bar, his face showing no expression at all. Soyan kept looking down at the counter, her hands folded quietly in her lap. This made Velta even more confident. The humans were acting exactly like he expected them to, scared and trying to pretend he was not there. Well, he would not let them ignore him. "I asked you a question, soft creatures," he said louder so more people in the bar could hear. "When a Kithra warrior speaks to you, the polite thing is to answer." Still, the humans said nothing. They just sat there looking defeated. This was perfect, Velta thought. Now everyone could see how superior the Kithra were compared to these weak beings at the Gornathi table. Elder Thoxrin rumbled with laughter. "Look at them," he said to his younger companions. "They are so scared they cannot even speak. This is exactly what I was telling you about human cowardice." Floating HFY pulsed with bright colors that meant amusement and superiority. They had never seen such a clear example of weak beings trying to hide from stronger ones. Velta decided to make the show even better for his audience. He moved closer to the humans until he was standing right behind Soyang's chair. "You know," he said, "I was just telling my warriors about the last human colony we visited. Such interesting creatures you humans are when you are afraid." Now Deho did look up. His eyes met Velta's for just a moment, but then he looked away again like he was too scared to meet the warrior's gaze directly. This made Velta feel even more powerful. "Yes," Velta continued, "the colony was called something with flowers in the name, Harmony. Something or other. The humans there thought they could resist us. Can you imagine such foolishness?" Jinwoo's fingers tightened just slightly around his glass, but he still did not turn around or speak. Soying breathing became a little faster, but she kept looking down at the counter. Velta noticed these small changes and thought they meant the humans were getting more scared. Perfect, he thought. Let me tell them exactly what happens to humans who try to stand up to real warriors. The colony had about 2,000 humans living there, he said, making his voice loud enough for the whole bar to hear. They had built a nice little town with houses and farms and a school for their younglings. Very peaceful, very quiet. The bar had become completely silent. Now everyone was listening to Velta's story. Even the bartender had stopped making drinks to watch. We gave them a chance to surrender, Velta continued. But some of the humans thought they could fight us. They actually picked up weapons. Can you believe it? Soft, weak creatures thinking they could battle Cthulhu warriors. He clicked his mouth in what he thought was an amusing way. It was like watching baby animals try to roar at adult predators. Completely ridiculous. Set his glass down on the counter very slowly and carefully. His movements were controlled, like someone trying very hard to stay calm. The fighting did not last long, of course. Velta said we had to chase some of the humans through their wheat fields. The golden grain was so pretty when it caught fire. The whole valley lit up like a celebration. Soyen closed her eyes tightly, like she was trying not to see something in her mind. Oh, and the sounds they made. Velta continued, especially the young ones calling for their parents, but of course their parents could not help them anymore. We had already dealt with the adults who tried to fight you. Wu turned his head slightly toward Velta for the first time. His eyes were very calm and steady as he looked at the Cthulhu warrior. Some of the watching aliens started to feel a little uncomfortable. The story was getting very detailed and dark. Even for creatures who were used to violence, this seemed like too much, but Velta was enjoying himself too much to stop. The best part was hunting the families who tried to hide in the forest, he said. They would run and stumble and fall, and we would catch them easily. Humans are such slow runners, especially when they are carrying their young. Now Deho turned around in his chair to face Velta completely. His movement was slow and deliberate. His face showed no expression, but his eyes were very focused. What did you say? Deho asked quietly. His voice was so soft that people had to strain to hear him. Was delighted. Finally he had gotten a reaction from one of the soft creatures. I said we hunted your people through the forest, he repeated happily. Like animals running from predators. Deho nodded slowly, like he was thinking about something. What was the name of this place again? He asked, still in that very quiet voice. Harmony Colony, Velta said proudly. 3 months ago we made sure none of them would cause trouble for anyone ever again. The temperature in the bar seemed to drop several degrees, even though nothing had changed with the air system. Soyen opened her eyes and a single tear rolled down her cheek, but she did not make any sound. She just sat there breathing very slowly, and even Lijinwu turned all the way around in his chair. Now so he was facing the room. His movements were controlled and precise, like someone getting ready to do something that required careful preparation. Tell me more about this colony, Deho said in that same quiet voice. What did the people there look like? What were they doing when you found them? Velta was thrilled to have such an interested audience. Oh, they were typical humans, he said, small and weak. The men were working in the fields when we arrived. The women were taking care of children, all cooking food, very domestic, very peaceful. He clicked his claws together, making sharp sounds. They had no idea we were coming until our ships landed right in their town square. Then they started screaming and running everywhere like scared insects around the bar. Some of the other aliens were starting to look uncomfortable. This story was getting very specific and very cruel, even for beings who were used to warfare. But Velta did not notice their discomfort. He was too busy enjoying the attention. And the children, he continued, were so funny, trying to hide behind their parents. Like that would protect them. We had to separate them, of course, to make sure they understood who was in charge. Now Deho stood up from his stool very slowly. His movement, it was smooth and controlled, like water flowing uphill. Every eye in the bar turned to watch him. The human was not very tall compared to the Cthulhu warrior, but something about the way he moved made the watching aliens pay close attention. Repeat what you just said, Deho said in that same quiet voice. Tell me again about the children. Velta was practically glowing with happiness at having such a captive audience. Oh yes, the human younglings were quite entertaining. We made sure to deal with them in front of their parents so the adults would understand what happens when soft creatures try to resist superior. Bing Zoyong put her hands flat on the bar counter. Her knuckles were white, but her breathing stayed controlled. Lijinwu stood up as while moving with the same careful precision as his friend. The two humans were still much smaller than the Cthulhu warrior, but something in the air had changed. The other aliens in the bar could feel it, even if they could not understand what it was. Velta was too excited by his own story to notice the change in atmosphere. Some of the parents actually thanked us for ending their children's suffering quickly, he said. Such grateful soft creatures. Dea took one step toward Velta. The movement was small, but every alien in the bar noticed it could. You describe these children you mentioned, Deho asked. His voice was still quiet, but now it carried something else underneath, something that made the watching aliens suddenly uncomfortable. Clicked his mouth happily. Oh, there was a little girl with long black hair like your friend there, he said, pointing at Soyang. She kept calling for her mother, even after her mother could not answer anymore. That was when Soyang stood up. The three humans were now all standing, facing the Cthulhu warrior who towered over them. They looked small and fragile and completely outmatched. But something had changed in the bar, something that made even the biggest, strongest aliens suddenly want to be somewhere else. Velta finally noticed that the atmosphere had shifted, but he thought it was because everyone was impressed by his story. "What is wrong, soft creatures?" he asked, clicking his claws together. "Are you upset by my tale of Victor?" To look directly into Velta's black eyes. "That little girl with the long black hair," he said very quietly. "What was her name?" Velta shrugged. "I do not remember the names of insects," he said. "They are not important." That was his final mistake. The Nexus station hung in space like a giant metal flower with its arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm was bigger than most planets, and ships came and went. Like tiny insects around a bright light, the station never slept and never stopped. Moving inside its metal walls, thousands of different creatures from across the galaxy lived and worked and traded with each other deep. Inside the station was a place called the Void's Edge. It was a bar where anyone could come and drink, no matter what planet they came from or what they looked like. The walls were dark metal and the lights were dim, and soft music played from speakers. But it was quiet enough that people could talk. The air smelled like different kinds of alcohol and food. From dozens of worlds tonight, the bar was full like it always was. 3 tall insect creatures sat at a corner table. Their bodies were black and shiny like beetles, and they had 6 arms each with sharp claws at the ends. Their eyes were big and black, and they clicked their mouths when they talked. These were Kythera, and they were some of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. At another table sat creatures that looked like walking rocks. They were twice as tall as most beings, and the skin was gray and rough like stone. These were the Gornathi, and they were miners and builders, but also very strong fighters. Their voices were deep and rumbling like earthquakes. When they spoke, near the bar floated creatures that looked like jellyfish. Made of light, they had no solid bodies, just glowing shapes that changed colors when they had feelings or thoughts. These were the Zefki, and they were very smart and thought they were better than everyone else. The bar was loud with talking and laughing. All these different creatures were having a good time drinking and telling stories. Most of them were talking about the same thing humans. Kythera, a captain named Velta, was telling his warriors about their latest victory. His voice was loud and proud. "We took another human colony last week," he said, clicking his claws on the table. "They gave up without even fighting. Just like always, humans are so weak and scared." His warriors clicked their mouths in agreement. One of them said, "I heard they cry when they see us coming." "Is that true?" Velta laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "Oh yes, they cry like little babies. They beg us not to hurt them. It is almost sad how pathetic they are." At the rock creature table, Elder Thoxran was teaching younger Gornathi about humans. "Humans are not like us," he rumbled in his deep voice. "They cannot lift heavy things like we can. They cannot work in dangerous places. They run away when things get hard. This is why they use machines to do their work for the young Gornathi asked. "But Elder, why do other species trade with them if they are so weak?" Thoxran thought for a moment. "They are good at fixing things and making deals, but in a real fight they are useless. They have no strength, no courage. They are soft creatures who should not even be in space." The floating Zefki were pulsing with different colors as they talked about humans in their own way. The colors meant words and feelings to them right now. They were glowing with colors that meant disgust and confusion. One Zefki pulsed bright red, which meant strong feeling. "Human emotions are a disease that spreads," it said without speaking words. "They feel fear and anger and love, and it makes them act crazy. No intelligent species should have such wild feelings." Another Zefki glowed blue, which meant agreement. "Yes, their emotions make them weak and unpredictable. They cannot think clearly because their feelings get in the way. This is why they lose battles and run from danger." All around the bar, other creatures were having similar conversations. Everyone agreed that humans were the weakest species in space. They were good for some things like fixing machines or carrying cargo, but they could not fight, and they were too emotional to be trusted in important situations. Then the bar door opened and 3 humans walked in. The first one was a man named Deho. He was not very tall and had rough hands that showed he worked hard for a living. His clothes were simple and worn, and his face looked tired, like he had not slept well in a long time. Behind him came another man called Jinwoo. He was a bit taller and moved carefully like someone who was always watching for danger. His eyes looked around the bar quickly, taking in everything and everyone. The third human was a woman named Soyang. She was smaller than the men and looked young, but her eyes seemed older, like she had seen things that made her grow up fast. Her long black hair was tied back and she walked with quiet steps. 3 humans moved to the bar and sat down on stools. Deho raised his hand to get the bartender's attention. The bartender was a creature with 4 arms and purple skin. It looked at the humans with the same expression it used for everyone else. But some of the other customers in the bar started looking their way. Deho ordered drinks for all 3 of them. His voice was quiet and polite. "We have been traveling for a long time," he told the bartender. "We just need something to help us relax." Bartender nodded and started making their drinks. It had served humans before and knew they usually wanted simple alcohol, not the strong stuff that could knock out a Gornathijan. Wu looked around the bar, taking in all the different creatures. He noticed the Kythera in the corner and the Gornathi at their table and the floating Zefki near the ceiling, but he did not stare or seem worried. He just looked like someone who wanted to know what was around him. Soyang sat quietly between her 2 friends. She looked down at the bar counter and seemed lost in her own thoughts. Her hands were folded in her lap and she breathed slowly like someone trying to stay calm. The bartender brought their drinks, 3 glasses of something that looked like golden water. Deho took a sip and nodded. "Thank you." The 3 humans sat quietly drinking and not talking much. They looked exactly like what everyone expected humans to look like, tired, worn out, and trying to avoid trouble at the Kithra table. Velta glanced over at the humans and clicked his mouth in amusement. "Look," he said to his warriors, "the soft creatures are here, perfect timing. We were just talking about how weak they are." His warriors looked at the humans and made clicking sounds. That meant laughter. "They are so small," one of them said. "I could break all three with one claw." Velta stood up from his table and walked over toward the humans. His 6 arms moved as he walked and his claws clicked on the metal floor. Other creatures in the bar turned to watch, wondering what would happen. The 3 humans did not look up when Velta approached. They just kept drinking their golden liquid and minding their own business. This made Velta feel even more confident that they were scared of him. Well, he said in his clicking voice. "What do we have here?" 3 little humans all alone in a big scary bar. Deho looked up at Velta but did not say anything. He just looked tired, like he wanted to be left alone. Jinwoo kept looking straight ahead at the bottles behind the bar. His hand stayed steady on his glass. Young continued staring down at the counter. Her breathing stayed slow, and even Velta clicked his mouth in what he thought was a scary way. "We were just talking about your kind," he said. "How weak and pathetic you all are. How you run away from any real fight." Still the humans said nothing. They just sat there looking small and defeated, exactly like every other human the aliens had ever met around the bar. Other creatures started paying attention. The Gornathi stopped their conversation to watch. The Zefki pulsed with colors of interest. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when a Cathora warrior confronted weak humans. This was going to be entertaining. Velta smiled, showing his sharp teeth as he prepared to have some fun with these pathetic soft creatures. He had no idea that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his very long life.